Week 7 starts with patch 8.4, which introduces a host of new mage items, souped-up minions, and teams trying to lock their spots for the playoffs. You see Pobelter and Team Liquid marching to the stage. They're up against Meteos and 100 Thieves in our first match of the day. Hello and welcome to the NA LCS Countdown, where for 30 minutes we take a look at the new patch and theorize how it could alter the league until the timer reaches 0 and we jump into Champion Select. If you are looking for the post-game lobby, jump over to EU LCS Twitch channel for their wrap-up of the weekend. With only 3 more weeks of play, though, left in the regular season, let's take a look at the standings. Echo Fox currently hold on to first at 10-2, followed by Cloud9 in second, and 100 Thieves, Clutch Gaming, Team Liquid all tied at 7-5. TSM holds down that 6th place spot at 6-6, and that makes our first game of the day a battle between 3rd place teams, Team Liquid and 100 Thieves. Then TSM face off against FlyQuest, and for Game 3, tune into Riot Games 2, where Zyrene, Prawley, and Nadeshot will be bringing you Cloud9 versus Counterlogic Gaming from the NA LCS Lounge. Looking at that first match, though, Prawley talks about the team's recent success and how they're going to fare on the new patch.
I think this is pretty normal growth for a good team. There's no way to just be improving from like day one. There's going to be dips in kind of like focus and like direction, I guess. So we've gotten through that. So now that there's a new patch, hopefully our direction is enough to take us through this game. I never feel ready when a new patch is out. I think it's going to take at least like 2 weeks to kind of learn a patch. So us being the first game in NA to show this new patch, definitely worried, because I think there's a lot of people that will be wrong this weekend, and next weekend everyone's going to look back at pick ban going like, what were we thinking back then? So we're trying to avoid that today, but there's no guarantees.
I mean, what he's saying there kind of echoes their trajectory through this spring split, right? A hot start, then they kind of took a dip, and here they are on the rise again. And so tracking their improvement has been difficult, and then you throw in a new patch like this.
Yeah. I mean, I slightly agree with what he's saying. Like, ups and downs are normal throughout the course of the season. You shouldn't overreact. But I think they took a bigger dip than a lot of people were expecting, and other teams in the league haven't matched that dip either. I mean, like, look at C9, Echo Fox, even Team Liquid to an extent, haven't felt like they've hit that bottom out, because they were 4-1 at one point. Then they go to 5-5 after dropping a ton in a row. They win 2 last weekend, which looks great, but it seems like it's mostly off the back of Afromu's playmaking.
Yeah, and I do love the honesty out of Prawley in that interview, how a lot of people will be wrong, and he's not super confident that he's like, yeah, we figured it all out in 4 days. We did it. I think NA, at least, has a little bit of an edge, so to speak, where they have their academy teams that hopefully they're working pretty closely with, who've already been able to play 2 games, as well as the European LCS finishing up their week pretty much as we're starting this show. So that'll be interesting to see how the rest of the team adapts. As, you know, after losing 4 in a row, they have won 3 in a row and look to be on an upswing.
So if we take a look at that upswing, a lot of it comes off the back end, some incredible play from Afromu in particular.
And that's the thing that we want to see the rest of the team come together around. You're not always going to get Blitzcrank into a pick, or a siege comp, excuse me, and get tons of pickoffs. His Thresh game was just, it wasn't even like a great pick necessarily in terms of what they were playing against, but he just nailed everybody with it. And then here's those replays. You see people flashing out of the way and letting their teammates get hooked. Not really a great
hook at the end, too.
Oh, yeah.
He tried one earlier that didn't go as well, but that's all that matters when he lands the hook to win the game. Like, that was his best week he's had in a really long time. And if they need that to go 2-0 in a week, they're not going to do it very often, but the team did look a lot better last week.
Right, and it's interesting. We look at a 7-5 Thieves and we call them streaky to some degree. Yeah. We have to recognize their opponent, Team Liquid, is sitting at the same record, although, you know, not necessarily stringing together as many wins and losses.
All right, 100 Thieves is streaky. Team Liquid is hot and cold.
Okay.
Yeah, with slightly different definitions in this one. Well, it's just because their ups and downs seem to be a lot more rapid or unpredictable even as far as when they are good versus when they aren't good. And specifically last week, they definitely had some misfires. I think coordination between Pobelter and Impact. They tried to do the Galio combo. Accidentally coined it there. And they were not playing well together when they did that. Traditionally, they have been a team that wins through laning strength. So this could be the patch to get back to that, as that's some of our early reads on how we think it's going to shake out.
Yeah, it's definitely the case where Team Liquid has these really high highs and low lows, and they're really inconsistent. If you look at just like the greens and reds on these papers, it's just like so broken up, whereas 100 Thieves has big chunks of red, big chunks of green, and then their highs are not quite as like, oh my god, they won the game in 10 minutes, like this is insane.
Right, and of course it was already kind of touched on by Prawley, but one of the biggest factors for these teams and how they perform is going to be their adaptation to this patch 8.4. Tons of stuff coming through.
Yeah, and it was about a 20-page patch there if you're reading the patch notes
right.
online.
And we tried to condense
We've
it to a graphic.
It into one picture. This is all that you're going to be paying attention to.
There's a lot of changes, though.
Yeah, mid lane items, jungler no longer has as many wards, and the hotness, especially yesterday and in Academy, was Banner of Command being used on Baroned up siege minions, because they essentially do about 3.5 times as much damage as they were doing on the last patch when they have these buffs applied to them. It means it kills a turret in 8 hits if nothing else is hitting the turret.
And this led to this kind of mini game that happens where one team wants to protect it, one team wants to get rid of it, but you have to get close enough to do that. So some people are running minion dematerializers as a counter to it, but there's a whole kind of almost like meta game between when do you use your
Right, you gotta hold it until they get the Baron and a banner in order to do that?
So, and if you're winning, you'll never use them. And then
it's gone.
You have to get close enough to do it too, so you kind of need to pressure them off turrets. Here you see no one's able to really get close enough until they finally get one, but now there's a second one. So there's this whole kind of weird late game meta game evolving around dematerializers and those banner command minions.
Look, we wanted to see some changes in the game, in the way the game is being played.
It is
We're definitely
different.
seeing some changes in the way the game's being played. Let's play a little over-under on this one. Because of the introduction of Banner with the Baron, it has risen to popularity rather in a lot of the other regions already, averaging, I think, about 16 in the first day of games for those LCS regions. So we're going to do the same thing here. Today, over-under on 16.5 Banner of Commands built in today's games.
Yeah, I'm going to go under EULCS and NA Academy where it's 16. And the reason I say it is under is because I feel like a lot of people dove into this without really fully understanding how it worked. They saw the banner was good. They'd run like 3 or 4 of them. But really, you still need combat effectiveness with Locket occasionally. If the other team is going to hold on to their minion dematerializers, you're probably going to be less incentivized to stack banners, so to speak. And that game of chicken, I think, will reduce the number of banners we see a little bit today.
Yeah, there was the mania kind of phase that we had in the first couple days of the EULCS, and it's coming back down now for NA.
It all happened super fast.
Yeah.
It's like, for the people that haven't been watching,
Right, this is in a week.
Oh
This
yeah,
is
this is old news.
Right,
we still haven't even seen it with NA LCS teams, and it's been like 48 hours since we've seen Banner in competitive play, and we're already seeing some counters.
And that's one change. Now let's talk about the myriad of changes that went to the mid lane. We're going to hear from some of the NA LCS mid laners who are anticipating coming into the new patch.
They changed basically the core build path that everyone did. You don't do Morello into like Landers anymore.
Morello's not gonna be like the best item anymore for mid. It's probably gonna be Luden's Echo because it has so much good stats.
The new Archangel is going to be the to-go item instead of Morello's now.
It seems like it favors towards champions that need mana or want mana, such as like Victor, Orianna, Cassiopeia, Ryze.
I think me adapting to new items is going to be, I will probably have an advantage on that. I am someone who is more likely to try out new item builds and play certain item styles on certain champions like the National Crew.
A pentakill for Power of Evil!
Maybe we will see on like Talia going like the new Lost chapter, and then we could possibly rush the Spooky Ghost. Or maybe on Syndra, rush Ludens, rush Spellbinder, and then you press Spellbinder ultimate and you just destroy him. The AD carry, of course, the only the AD carry.
Few thoughts from the pros, but with all of these changes, a lot's up in the air. Where do you guys land on what might change within that mid lane meta?
There's a lot going on because so much is in flux. We don't know if we're going to go for a super tank meta with tons of Banner of Commands or a really early game focus, and so it's not quite clear where the mage stuff is going to land, but there are a couple key items that are emerging. If the tanks become more popular, you're going to see a lot of these people who use Leandries now. It's completely focused on being a tank burning item. It ramps up damage when you're closer. That combined with the Abyssal Mask and some of these other items that have a fair amount of HP and AP built into them or have defensive utility makes me think that there's a possibility we see a lot of these kind of shorter range mages crop up. Cassio, Ryze, Galio, anything that can abuse this. Vladimir could potentially be seen. There's so many different choices now for them to make use of these items.
Yeah, and I think specifically the Archangel staff users that turns into Seraph's Embrace are the biggest winners. I know Ryze in particular, just because it was already part of his build, went up about 5% in win rate on solo queue, and he was already a fairly banned champion in the NALCS. I think that works for Kassadin as well as Cassiopeia, some of those pros we're talking about.
All right, but perhaps most importantly would be the nerfs coming through to our favorite and/or actually least favorite mid lane champion.
Zoe to get nerfed.
In Zoe. Yes. So earlier, what we did is we created a visual representation of the 8.4 nerfs. Mark represents the balanced team, and the box, as you can see, quite clearly represents Zoe.
Yeah, so...
you really got into it, Dad,
yeah,
towards the end.
Yeah, you maybe went a little far. Really took out your frustration with
we
it.
had fun with it.
I mean, it's good to note because so much of the patch before was about the 3 red side bans with Zoe, Skarner, and GP. GP's been hit, Zoe's been hit. Like, those are bans that have been dropped off. So Zoe got destroyed, like you saw that box falling apart. Doesn't feel like anyone's gonna pick her.
No, well, hopefully not. Now, we've scratched the surface, but if you want to hear more about the patch with one of the rioters who helped design it, take a look at the Season 2, Episode 7 of The Dive for more on 8.4.
Yeah, and specifically, he is the designer who worked most closely with the AP items. He's been working on that for several months. And then also, if you want to hear more recently about the patch, Season 2, Episode 8, we also recorded this Wednesday where we kind of talked a little bit about Banner and what we think it'll do to the meta.
One plug wasn't enough, Jet. Jet had to get another one in there. I like it. All right, well, what teams, players would you be looking at for this patch that might either greatly benefit or, you know, be greatly hurt by these changes?
I mean, we kind of have to talk about the mid laners, obviously, with so much AP itemization changes, and the fact that we're talking about these tier builds, these kinds of scaling champions, it feels like we're going to a more lane-focused style, less of the Talias, these roamers. You might still see them, but it does feel like tier users are going to be the biggest ones. So Phoenix, Jensen, and Bjergsen are all people who have great laning stats who could potentially see focus that is less about impacting the map, benefiting from this.
Yeah, and even if I look up into the top lane, right, Gangplank's been nerfed, and if everyone's trying to do big fights at 20 minutes, you're going to be seeing, I think, a lot of tank play. Whether or not that's adopted by every team is yet to be seen. So one player in Licorice is someone who has gotten counterpick in most every game and also has not played a single champion this split that I would classify as a tank.
Right.
So either he needs to be very fresh on his tank counterpicks and continue to play carry so they can be lane dominant into taking Baron, or we're going to have to see him on tanks, which is just a complete uncertainty for a player like Licorice.
Right, not necessarily a given negative. It's just an unknown. And now the flip side, let's look at some underperformers in the top lane. People like Impact, Someday. Big expectations for these guys. Does this help or hurt them to transition to perhaps a more tank-focused meta?
It feels like their teams have had a really hard time playing around them. We saw it last week a lot with Impact in particular, getting the Camille, getting ganks, but not translating that into any tangible advantages.
Yeah.
Someday feels like he's largely been the kind of forgotten member of the team left on his own island, but if tanks come back in the meta, you don't need to play around them. It's not a volatile matchup. Suddenly, that's fine to just stick them on those Scions, Chos, whatever is going to crop up in the meta.
Yeah, and I think historically, Impact and Someday have been some of the best tank players in the North American LCS, especially with how they team fight, insofar as they're very good at playing around their team, even if their team isn't good at playing around them, and tanks suit that playstyle much better.
It's weird to say you're impressed by somebody's Maokai play, but I'm always impressed by Impact's Maokai
really good
play.
at it.
It's insane. It's insane. We're going to step away, but when we return, we look at the teams vying for playoffs. Joel shares his predictions for today's games, and we gather the win conditions for TL versus 100 Thieves. Don't go anywhere. God, I hope. Welcome back to the NA LCS Countdown. We're closing in on Game 1 Champion Select, and as we do, let's take another look at that clump in third place, where every game moving forward could either spell success or failure come playoff time.
And Team Liquid is one of the first teams we'll get to see here today, and I gotta say they're one of the teams I'm kind of optimistic for. Okay. I think that they have been experimenting a lot in play styles, and hopefully they start realizing what's working and what's not. Playing around some Impact was not looking too great. There's changes coming in the meta that I think should be good for them. Hopefully this is a patch that they can start improving. They do have a tough road ahead of them, though.
Exactly. 4 of these 6 teams are currently slotted for the playoffs, so they're going to have to perform to where their end season goals are in the remainder of the regular season to kind of prove that they have to be there. And a lot of this is kind of guesswork, and a lot of it is going to come down to best of ones as far as playoff seeding goes. I think they'll be a playoff team, and I do think that early laning should be a little bit more important, and that's where Team Liquid should theoretically excel. They have the best gold at 15 of all teams other than Echo Fox in the North American LCS, so I think they're set up pretty well, even if their schedule is pretty tough.
I was going to say, and it seems only fair to then talk about their opponents here in Game 1, also tied at 7-5, 100 Thieves.
Yeah, and this is a team who's got a tough schedule this week that gets a little easier next week and then still is slotted to play 4 of 6 playoff teams. So by no means an easy schedule from here on out. And when I look at the way 100 Thieves wins, it's often through the mid and late games or strictly through Aphromoo landing a lot of hooks, which to me doesn't translate as well towards the later stages of this split if patch 8.4 and the way the game is being played sticks around for a little bit.
Yeah, that's where so much is up in the air. It feels like for a while we were trending towards, based off the first day of VU LCS and some of the Academy, that we're trending this faster game time. And if your team excels in the late game, you might not have as much time to stall out and reach those moments as you initially thought you would have.
More priority on the early game. Before we look at Clutch Gaming, Solo had some thoughts on the desk's analysis of his play. Let's take a look.
I think Mark Z is doing me dirty. I don't know what Mark Z's problem is with not just me, I guess, but like Clutch as a whole. I think he underrates us a lot. I mean, I think the criticism is fair. Even within like the team, we understand that we really need to have like a statement win versus either like Echo Fox or C9 or even like TL. I think just beating some of the like bottom tier or even like middle of the pack teams is like not really good enough to get the attention of you being like potential finalist or semifinalist. But I think after we have a good showing versus one of those teams, then I think we'll get a lot more attention and we'll get a lot more praise.
Is it about the tier list, Solo? Is that what it's about?
It might be.
Because there's another guy right here who has been saying very similar criticisms about the whole team.
I think Solo did hit the nail on the head, though. It's about getting a statement win. They have yet to beat Echo Fox, Team Liquid, 100 Thieves, or Cloud9. That's every single team that's above them in the standings they haven't beaten yet, and they have been reliably able to late-game defeat the teams that are worse than them, and they could still win both games this week with that style since they play Optic and FlyQuest, but because of who they beat and who they lost to, I still have massive question marks about this team moving forward.
And like we said, it was kind of how they're doing it. You even heard Solo kind of saying he understands where it's coming from, that we haven't seen the big statement win. There's a lot of the Skarner play for Lyra and stuff like this. You look at their best victories, their TSM, and one of them was that crazy Apollo stealing everything in sight with Ezreal game. So it is a little hard to put your faith in these guys quite like you have for other people, especially when they don't have a track record prior to this season of being a playoff team, where you can say that with most of Team Liquid's players, and even 100 Thieves to an extent, are generally teams that have players who perform in playoffs.
Why you got to be a jerk about it, though?
I just... Why so mean, Mark?
Like, well,
I don't know.
I'm glad Solo
does
brought
no
it up,
one hear this guy talking?
It's something I've been wanting to bring up.
He just made the same points as me. Did no one hear that?
No, I got to do Solo.
I love Jad. Jad says hi to me in the hallways,
I mean, that's true. Jad is nicer than me.
Friendly.
All right, TSM, the last team, the playoff cutoff team, if you will. Let's talk about these guys.
And they had a really rough start to the season, which is why they have been kind of underperforming. They're the cutoff point. But I would say that they're a lot stronger than a lot of teams, even ahead of them potentially in the standings. They've started to figure things out last week. Sven had some great games, winning 2v2s on their own, something that was sorely lacking at the start of the season, where Sven and Mythy looked totally out of sync with the rest of the team.
Yeah, and I don't expect this team to suddenly be consistent and win every game from here on out in the rest of the split, but I still look at the players on that team, I look at how good they can be in lane, and I look at their history of winning LCS splits, whether it's Ven and Mithy in Europe or Bjergsen and Hansser in the North American LCS. These guys just consistently dominate.
Right.
So, yes, because they're a game behind Clutch in best of ones, they are currently in 6th. But I would take TSM over anyone else that was in this clump we just talked about, tied for 3rd in a best of 5. I would take TSM
so
over
come
them
playoff time, you've got more faith in TSM. We also have to remind ourselves they technically have an easier schedule than a lot of these other
Already
teams.
played Echo Fox. They get to play COG Golden Guardians and FlyQuest still. They're playing 3 playoff teams. A lot of these guys are playing 4 playoff teams from here on out. So I think things are looking up for TSM.
Yeah, absolutely.
What about the teams below TSM? Is there any chance, any glimmer of hope for these squads to make that run towards the playoffs? And if so, who are we looking at?
It's a very faint light, that glimmer.
Okay.
For me, it'd probably be FlyQuest. They are a team that feels like they have...
Well, they play today, so that's a big one.
Yeah, so they're going to need to win today to have that hope at all, really. Right. And they have not had their whole roster the entire time. They're switching out supports. They're waiting on the visa for Fly. They finally have their play style together. And it feels like this patch comes at a bad time where it's like Flame was playing GP Gnar all the time, and they had Fly on roamers to influence side lanes, and Turtle can play aggressive. Right. And now there's a big question mark of how they adapt on 8.4, but just based off how they looked previously, I did think this team had a chance.
Pending adaptation. That's one of our 4-8 teams. What about the other one, Optic Gaming?
Yeah, Optic's the other team at 4-8. I think it's less likely, and that's just kind of based on the math, right? If FlyQuest beats TSM, not only do they move within 1 game, they'd also hold the head-to-head. Optic has already lost both games to TSM, so they would then be 3 games behind the next closest team with 6 to go. So they have to, what feels like, win out, as well as have one of those higher placed teams lose a lot of games. And based on the way we have seen Optic winning, where I already feel like they have been optimizing for game wins, playing specifically around their strengths, maybe not necessarily going for the same kind of long-term growth that a lot of other teams are doing when we see Team Liquid trying to draft around top when their strengths are in the bottom lane. So I think it is fairly unlikely to see Optic getting up
Improbable, not impossible. One match that made the playoff picture much more interesting was the TSM upset over Echo Fox, which is the subject of this week's mic check.
Have you reached Path of Nirvana? After you dumpstart Dardock, you're gonna say, yeah, I think I reached Path of Nirvana today. Doom, doo, doo, doom.
He's pacing, so he's shaking.
He's nervous. So, jungle carry? Actually, yeah.
Yeah.
If none of the lanes can carry, then jungle has to carry.
I'm gonna stand still on stage so I don't look nervous at all.
Are you nervous, bro?
Perfectly still. No, I'm chill. I'm good.
I'm always nervous when I play versus what's called TSM, but that's just because I want to win more.
I'll just be in my jungle getting a level lead. And then later, level lead, I carry.
And jungler is 202. Guys, I'm up on level. Then see you in team fights.
See you in team fights.
Yeah. Alright guys, I have a lot of pressure, but I have no winning lanes, so see you in team fights. Nice. He's dead.
Kha'Zix here, Kha'Zix here, Kha'Zix here.
He's dead. Nice. Oh yeah, baby.
Hell yeah.
Here.
Nice.
Nice.
Pop, boom. Okay, I have 2 wards left. We can maybe get Tribush together.
Wards here.
I can roam mid here. Yeah, let's look here.
Top fighting, top fighting. Kha'Zix here.
Come on,
Gario's time moving, Gario's time moving.
Come on, tipping.
I come to.
Let's go.
Okay, okay. Sedge.
Slay 1 HP. No, close on the flash.
Okay, we win.
She's dead. Camille.
I got it.
Camille, no flash.
Oh shit.
You're fine, Houdin.
Look for Nash.
We can stop Baron.
Okay.
I'm basing. No flash here. We can stop Baron for sure. We should just go for a 50-50. That's our bad. We have Brand. Yeah, we have Brand. Okay, care for Galio Flash, okay? Care for Galio Flash. 1.5. TP here as well. Can we go TP? On the side?
No.
Okay,
I don't think so.
Okay, 1.5, okay.
Kill Camille first. I'm on Camille.
I'm cutting back. I'm 1 HP. I got Ash. I can double bomb. Okay. Play slow. Oh, nice. Nice.
I got some.
No ceiling. Holy shit. I'm Faker.
You're Faker.
700 AP Galio. Daddy.
Nothing Nirvana.
I don't know if it was Path Nirvana in this game, but we did win the game. It was fine.
Yeah.
It was bot lane Nirvana, I think.
Well, I'm talking about pathing Nirvana there. I'm not quite sure what the opposite is. It's just like pathing darkness.
Yeah, I don't know.
Nickelback. Yeah.
No, it's not a band chance.
What did they ever do
State
to
of
you,
enlightenment in the mind.
All right, 3 minutes ahead of game 1. Let's get some predictions up on the screen. But first, let's hear from everyone's favorite analyst, Joel, the NALCS PA extraordinaire.
Fashion's very important to me, so I'm gonna pick 100 Thieves again. I'll go with TSM. I still don't really know why, but I'm gonna go with TSM. Darshan left me hanging last week, so I'm gonna go with C9 this time. Echo Fox, they got more handsome guys on that team, so I like that better. I'll go with Clutch. I saw they ate a really big breakfast this morning, so I know they'll be ready.
Talk about Solo will be happier with Joel's prediction.
Well, I was going to say, talk about me doing people dirty, just straight up calling one team better looking than the other team.
Eat a hearty breakfast, dude. You win games.
Let's take a look at how these match up against your guys' predictions.
Remarkably, Joel picked almost the same games as we did.
In typical boring fashion, both of my analysts agree down the board.
Yeah, all right, well, first off, today is just a day where there's clear favorites in every single way. It's mostly playoff teams playing non-playoff teams, or if it is playoff teams, it's like a very big difference between the two of them.
Right.
So this time around, I mean, Team Liquid 100 Thieves is really the only thing to discuss.
Yeah, as far as when you're going to really wonder who's going to win. However, I would not be surprised if we saw multiple upsets today because it's patch day, right? It's the first day after probably the biggest patch of the split. One team was in a different scrim block, didn't practice the things that were as good as what the other team practiced, and you're going to lose some games. We saw that over in the European LCS, and it's pretty common when you have a big patch like this.
The problem is you can't say who it's going to happen to. It's like, you know, flipping a coin at that point.
Okay, well, fine. You know, we heard Prolly. We heard
like
Prolly's
strength of the analysts, and so to speak. Strength of the analysts, strength of the coaches, but there is still going to be guesswork involved.
Very much so. Let's get some win conditions up on the board before we throw it over to the casters. 100 Thieves, what are we thinking?
So for 100 Thieves, you're 100 Thieves.
So I got to do 100 Thieves. So when they beat COG last time, it was because Ryu got ahead and was able to apply split map pressure. And under the assumption that Baron is a more important objective this patch, which it is, even without banner, the Baron minions are more powerful, they take less damage, and they give you more AP. They're going to get the map pressure on TL if they can apply side lane pressure with Ryu. So I think it's really important they actually get him ahead in this instance.
What's the response from TL?
For me, it's to throw the bigger bot lane party. A lot of 100 Thieves victories come through their bot lane, where Afro and Meteos combine to get Cody Sun ahead. Team Liquid also like playing through their bot lane, so I would love to see them be the more aggressive team. Play around their bot lane. Stop ganking topside. That does not seem to translate to wins for them. So throw the bigger bot lane party, bring more people, make it better than whatever party they're trying to play on 100 Thieves side.
I love it. I can't wait to see what kind of parties are planned. Our two of our three 7 and 5 teams tied for third. Up first. Let's toss it out to the battle arena to get into the games.
Thank you very much.